Hi everyone, welcome. It's Carrie from Carrie's Wreath Creations. I am here today to put together a spring wreath. What I'm going to be using, I'm going to be referencing a wreath kit that is available in my Etsy shop. If you want to purchase a kit, please check the description box below. I have many color combinations available. If it shows as sold out, please just keep checking back. I do anticipate having more supplies just sort of throughout the season. So if you happen to catch it at a time when it's sold out, just check back. So I am going to be referring to what comes with the kit. However, if you're just a wreath maker and want to make a wreath like this, you can just follow the instructions. I'll provide the information as far as the materials that you need, and you can put this together on your own. So with any of my wreath kits, I kind of follow the same format for everything that I provide. So the first thing you receive is a 10-inch wire wreath frame. It has 4 bars and 5 brackets. And that's important so that we know where our petals are going to go. I provide just enough materials for you to make a nice full wreath on this 10-inch wire wreath frame. You will also receive a piece of plastic canvas mesh. This is to put in the center of the wreath frame so that we can attach petals and also attach our center piece. For the spring wreath kit, you will be receiving a sort of flower design to go in the center of the wreath. But if you're watching this video and you're either watching it's a different season, or you're looking to do something else for your center, if you're getting a kit from me, I'm usually going to be providing these wooden cutouts. Depending on season, you might get, you know, for Valentine's Day, it was a heart. For St. Patrick's Day, it was a shamrock. 4th of July, it'll probably be a star. But regardless, you get this piece of this wooden cutout. But if you're working on your own, there's lots of other things you can use for the center of a wreath. I actually have a center making video where you can make a center from burlap or from felt. So please check that out on my channel. You also receive, in order to be able to attach this, you'll receive a cable mount, which has a sticky on the back, and a pipe cleaner. You'll also receive as many zip ties as you need to complete the project. And for this spring wreath kit, or if you're working on this on your own, we're going to be using 3 colors of poly burlap. In the kit, it will be pre-cut using a wood burning tool to cut down on the fray, but you'll have the option of some different colors, and depending on availability, they may all be available. Maybe some of them will be not, but I hope to keep these all pretty well stocked. Today in what we're going to be working on, we're going to actually use purple, turquoise, and this lime green color for our flower. One thing I forgot to mention about the center, you'll also be able to have an option as far as the paint color that you receive. You just get a little sample size of paint. I'm going to be using yellow for mine, so just check the listing on Etsy for your options for the paint color so that you can paint your wooden center. You can obviously do other things with this if you so choose. You can add glitter, add some decals, anything you want, but you will get some paint to at least have something to dress up just the plain wood. So we are going to use those 3 colors. In the kit, you'll also have, or on the listing, I should say, within the kit, you'll also have options of pink or yellow as well. So there should be 5 colors to choose from. You'll pick 3. Again, it'll all be based on availability. We're not going to use these, so I'm going to get these out of the way. Okay, and I've already painted my center, and I actually already went ahead and attached my cable mount. So as far as things that you will need that aren't included in the kit, you're going to need something to apply your paint with. I just use these foam brushes. You're going to need something to clip your zip ties with. These are just wire cutters. Scissors will also work, but I prefer the wire cutters. And then I always recommend that you have some sort of glue to reinforce your cable mount. This won't stay sticky forever. You know, you peel this off, and then what I usually do is I add a dab of glue. I have this DAP Rapid Fuse all-purpose adhesive. I use that, and then I also just outline it with some hot glue. So I do use 2 different types of glue to try to really sort of reinforce that. You could also try Gorilla Glue, which actually my hot glue gun has Gorilla Glue in it, but there's little things like this of Gorilla Glue, E6000, whatever you choose to use to make sure that that's really secure on there. But that part is already done. I would recommend, you know, you paint first so that that dries, and then take care of that so it's all ready to attach to your wreath when you're done. And then the final part of that, which just to show you on your cable mount, whoops, is you have these, you can sort of see through on each side, and you just sort of stick your pipe cleaner through and then twist it around a couple times to secure that on there. Okay, so we don't need that. It's already attached. You may also want to have a few of these little clips, chip clips or binder clips, clothespins, anything will work. This helps with making your petal nice and even, so that would also be helpful as well. So I am going to kind of go through this process. I'm going to show you how to make the petals, but we're going to focus more on just where to place the petals to finish off the wreath. I have a wreath that's about 3/4 of the way done already, so this will be pretty quick from here on out. So if you do miss anything, I would definitely recommend pause, rewatch the video if you miss any of the instructions. So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to take your piece of plastic canvas, and the black outline here is to help guide you for the petals that you're going to have to add to this piece. So where I draw that is all dependent on how is this going to cover all of your pipe cleaner or your zip ties and sort of the little nubs of your petal in the middle. So you want to use that as a guide. So you want that to be showing. And you're just going to take the zip ties provided, and you do have enough to do this step, so you don't have to worry about needing extra ones. I do count these 5 that you're going to use to attach to the wreath frame. So all I'm going to do is just go through one of the squares towards the edge, and I'm just attaching it pretty close to where the bracket is. And you're just going to do that on all 5, and that'll get it nice and secure to the center. Whoops. And these are 6-inch zip ties. I do provide a couple of extra zip ties as well as a couple of extra pieces of mesh. As I mentioned, the mesh is pre-cut in your kit. It comes with a wood, it's cut with a wood burning tool. I don't show that as part of this step, since if you get a kit, it'll be pre-cut, so you don't have to do that part. If you are a wreath maker and interested in seeing how that's done, I probably will at some point add that. I have a short video. It's actually on my Facebook right now. It's a Facebook Live. So if you go to my Facebook, Carrie's Wreath Creations, under videos, there is a video of me using the wood burning tool. I do that out in my garage. You want proper ventilation. You should really be wearing a mask when you do that. It's not really conducive to do this in my craft room in the house, so I do that outside, and I did take a quick video of how to do that. But it helps seal the edges and prevent fray. So all I did there was I added my 5 zip ties just close to the brackets, and so now this is very securely in here, okay? So I'm actually going to sort of fast forward a little bit here. So you're still going to see exactly, you know, what needs to get done in order to complete this wreath, but I just didn't want to, the process gets very repetitive after a while, and I didn't want you to need to necessarily sit here while I do the same thing over and over. So basically what's going to be happening when you choose your 3 colors, you're going to get a color for your outside layer, which your outside layer is going to go on bar 2. Okay, which is if we're counting the outside is bar 1, this is bar 2. So you're going to get one color that's going to go on bar 2, and you're going to have a total of 20 petals. 1 on the bracket, 3 in between, and then 1 on the bracket, 3 in between. So it's 4 per section, and there's 5 sections. So one of the pieces of poly burlap that you receive will be 20 pieces, and that is meant for your first row, which is on bar 2. Your middle layer, your second layer, is going to go on bar 4, which we skip bar 3. Bar 4 is the one that you have attached your zip tie to, okay? You're going to receive 10 pieces for that inside, or for that second row, okay? So how that's going to work, and you'll see when I show you the half completed wreath here, you're going to be putting 1 on the bracket and 1 in between. So there's a total, so it's basically 2 per section, and there's 5 sections, so a total of 10 petals. The third row, you will receive 5 pieces of poly burlap, and that is going to go on our outline here in the center. So there'll be 5 pieces, and how I usually choose to sort of line those up is I find where the bracket is, and that's where my petal goes. Okay, so that's just to show you where that's going to go before we start adding petals, because once we add them, it gets a little bit more difficult to see where everything goes. So again, 20 petals on bar 2, 4 per section, 10 petals on, this is going to be our second row, which is actually on bar 4, 1 on the bracket and 1 between, so a total of 10. And then our third row, our inside row, is going to be on this black marker outline here. So there'll be 5 petals, and we'll just sort of match those up with where the brackets lay. Okay, so to speed up here, and I am going to show you how to do the petal. So I have a wreath here that's about 3/4 of the way done. Okay, I left a gap here so I can show you, kind of just to recap what we just talked about on that plain wreath form. We have to put 1 on the bracket, and then we're going to put 3 in between, and then here's the next bracket. All the other petals I already have done, but I did leave open 2 brackets and then this whole section. So we're gonna do that outside first. Definitely don't do your wreath like this. You wanna do the whole outside, then the whole middle, and then the whole inside. Don't, this is not the best way to do it, but I wanted to make sure the video didn't get too long. So I am gonna show you how to do the petals first. Now what I like to do, I'm gonna go in and put my zip tie first. I like to latch my zip ties to the frame. I just put it on where I want it and put it in so it clicks once or twice. I just find it easier to have the zip tie in place before I start folding, because then when I have it folded, it's hard for me to hold the petal and put it in a zip tie at the same time and try to latch the zip tie. So this is where I put it. It's right on the bracket and right on bar 2. Okay, just like that. All right, so I take my 10 by 10 inch piece of poly burlap. Okay, what you want to make sure you're keeping track of is where are your factory edges, that's these sides here, and where are your cut edges, that's what I've cut for you, or if you're doing this on your own, where you have cut your poly burlap. Okay, the reason you want to keep track of that is you want your petals to be consistent, so you don't want to start off with your material this way for one petal and then this way for another petal, because basically your edges won't line up properly. So you want to make sure, keep track of where your factory edges and your cut edges are. So for me, I always start off with my poly burlap. It's 10 by 10 in a square. I have my factory edges up and down and my cut edges on the sides. Okay, curl up. It'll curl a little bit. I do try to flatten it because it makes the petals easier to fold, but you might be able to still tell where it just curls a little bit. Okay, you're going to turn it into a diamond shape. You're going to bring one corner up to meet the other corner. Now, because I am human and not a machine, sometimes you don't have a perfect 10 by 10 square. So you might have a little that doesn't line up on either side, but what you really care about is having the tip of your petal be very nice and even, which is why I sometimes recommend to people that you put a clip there at the top, because that's going to keep the points of your petal together as you fold. Okay, so it just kind of helps make the petal neater when you're done. So I have my triangle, and then I'm just going to turn it on its side. Now there's a number of ways to fold this. This is called the Dean Michael Daisy petal. I find it it's good to teach to beginners. It's a beautiful petal that looks great in many different styles of flowers. However, if you're a little bit more advanced or you want to try out different petals, please make sure to check out my channel. I have a video on there that is specifically just for different petal styles that you can use with the exact same amount of materials that you get with my kits. So if you want the kit, but you don't want to do this particular kind of flower, there are a couple other types of petals that will work where with the same amount of material, which is 35 pieces, you can still get a full wreath. You can just fold your petals a little bit differently, okay? Now, the way I like to fold these is I start at one end, I sort of curl that tip under, and then I just start gathering. And I try to gather the same amount of material each time I'm kind of grabbing it, okay? And at the other end, I sort of turn that tip under as well, okay? So at this point, now I have this. What I want to do for this petal is I'm going to shape it before I put it into the zip tie. Once it's in the zip tie, it's a little harder to form. And I do want it to sort of cup under. Okay, this would be cup up. This is cup down. You can certainly experiment with putting some of them in different ways, but for these purposes, all of my petals are going to be cup down, okay? And I just want it to have a nice shape, and once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go ahead and put it into my zip tie. And I'm putting in just about a fingertip of the gathered part into the zip tie and just pulling until it's nice and tight. Straighten that out and clip that off. Okay. So I'll show that fold one more time, and then after that, if you need further assistance with folding, you need to watch it again and again, please feel free to rewind and watch that part. All the other petals I have are already made, so we won't be doing this again. Okay, so again, we have our factory edges and our cut edges. Curl side up, turn it into a diamond, bring one corner up to meet the other corner. If you want to utilize a clip, you can do that at that point. Turn it onto its side. Now I will say there are different methods of folding the Dean Michael daisy petal. Some folks choose to gather it in the middle and then bring in the sides separately. I've seen that done. I've seen where you gather in the middle and you do sort of an accordion fold. There are different ways. I show what works for me, but you are certainly welcome to try those other techniques. But basically the whole goal is to just gather this at the bottom in the neatest way that you know that you can do, that's going to keep your petals looking consistent. So again, for me, that is to curl this, turn this little end under and just gather. I'm just gathering a little bit at a time here so I don't end up with any weird sort of wrinkles. And then I do the same thing on the other end where I curl that little end under. Okay, take my clip off and just shape my petal the way I want it. And I want it to kind of curve under like this. And then when I'm happy with that, it goes right into the zip tie. So now this second zip tie, I just put right there on bar 2. Okay, right next to, I put my first one where I had showed you before, which was right on the bracket on bar 2. And now this one's going next to it. Okay, so that's that. Okay, now, as I had mentioned in our pattern, we're doing one on the bracket. That was this one that I added here. And then 3 in between. So I just added 1, so I need to put 2 more before we get to the next bracket, which is open, by the way. I haven't put anything there yet, okay? So I am gonna speed this up and put in pre-made petals. So again, if you need to see the petal folding technique, please feel free to go back and watch that. But I do have pre-made petals. I learned this trick recently. I buy these little elastic bands, which you could certainly snip them off or take them off before you put them into the wreath if you wanted to, but it's nice because you get to pre-make your petals so they're all ready to go and you're really just loading them onto the frame. Makes things go a little bit faster. And so at least when I'm making these tutorials, it's very helpful for me. So again, these are going on bar 2, okay? And now I've gotten to the point, so I didn't clip the ends off so you could see what I did. So here was the first one I added right on the bracket. I added my 3 in between, and now I'm at the next bracket. So this next zip tie is gonna go right at exactly the same location where I showed you where I put my first one. So it's going in onto bar 2 right at the bracket. I'm a little crowded here because I already have a petal next to it, so just allow me a second to get that in there. Try to show you a close-up. Okay. All right. So here we are we're at the bracket and bar 2. This is our last petal for this outside row, which has a total of 20 petals. Okay. And that just gets put in here. And now I do have to fix that petal a little bit. It's a little bit wonky, and there's a good reason for that. So I just put in that last petal. Now your petals always are gonna form, they're gonna be in some sort of pattern in the way that they are overlaying one another. So right now, this one this is the last one I just added. It really needs to be where this part is behind this, whoops, I'm out of camera, this petal here. Okay, it's in kind of the wrong spot. So what I need to do is just very carefully just bring this petal up over top of this one, just like that. And of course I can rearrange any of these other ones that might not be laying exactly evenly, but there's where I just fixed that so it's now laying in the correct pattern. So the reason, you want to be mindful of where your factory edges and cut edges are. So all of my petals are laying in a way where here is a factory edge, the cut edge is hidden behind. And then here's another factory edge, cut edge is behind, okay? So that's why you want to keep track of where your petals are at, or what sort of where your edges are at and what pattern they're sort of laying on your wreath so it stays nice and neat. All right, so row 2 is going to be our turquoise. So as I mentioned, in row 2, we're working on bar 4, which is the inside bar. So we are skipping bar 3. We also skipped bar 1, okay? This was bar 1, there's nothing on it, okay? This outside bar. For row 2, we are working on the bracket and then 1 in between. Okay, so it's a total of 10. I already have some added. So the first one I need to add is right to this bracket right here on bar 4. It is up to you if you want to also go through one of the squares of the plastic canvas. I usually don't. At least at the bracket, it's not going anywhere anyways. But for the ones in between, I typically want to be able to slide them on the bar a little bit if I don't like where they're placed. Okay, so that's up to you, personal preference. Okay, so I have a bunch of these blue already made. We actually only need to add a couple. So there is where I just added that one to the bracket on bar 4. Now I need to put 1 in between, and then I need to finish off with this one on the bracket here. So we're just adding 2 more petals. So in between, and zip tie that one in. And finally, one on this last bracket here. Okay. And get that one in there. Okay. All right, so just as before, okay, I have interrupted my pattern here. This is the last one I just added. This part needs to go behind this petal so that my flow is the same all the way around. So I'm just gonna carefully tuck this one behind the other one here, just like this. And there we go. Okay, snip these ends off. So now we are done with row 2. That was 10 petals, okay? All right, so all we have left is a couple of these green to go on the inside. So as I had mentioned before, we're working on the plastic canvas now where the black circular outline was, okay? And you know, what you want to be concerned with on this inside layer is, you know, you're only adding 5 petals. You want to make sure that you are going to have enough coverage of your poly burlap, depending on what you're using for your center. So since I've laid this all out for you, if you have a kit, what I do is I, you know, figure out how big the circle, like where the petals need to lay so that they're all hidden behind this when we add it. So, you know, when I sort of just eyeball it for myself, but depending what you're using for your center, make sure you sort of have some sort of guide or measurement or something so that because these petals can really go anywhere, I mean, in some sort of pattern, but what I'm saying is they can go, you know, 1 inch from bar 4, they can go 2 inches from bar 4. It just depends what you're using for your center. So have some sort of idea of what you're using for the center so that way your petals will be in the right spot, so that way your center piece will cover the zip ties and the little nubbies that we have here. Okay, so as I had mentioned, we're working on the part with the marker, and I'm using my brackets as a guide for where to place the petals. So here is a bracket, so I'm kind of just going down to where that black outline is, and that's where I'm going to put my zip tie. Okay, so right where my finger is, that's where my zip tie is going to go, and that's where my petal is going to go. I just like to use the brackets as a guide, so that way I know my petals are going to be evenly spaced out in the center there. There's, you know, sort of not much that's there to sort of guide you. So I like to do that because it does help. Just make sure that my 5 petals in the center, there's 5 brackets, so that helps me get those evenly spaced out. Okay. So I got that one in there. And then last one. So once again, just sort of where my finger is at, where the bracket is, that's where the zip tie is going. And, oops, okay. Put that in, keep that latched. And I got my pre-made petal. I really like the poly burlap for flowers. People ask if I, can I do this with other material? And you certainly can. I just find poly burlap is really great for the flower style wreaths because, excuse me, the petals hold their shape really well with the poly burlap. So I just really like the way the petals look with that. I think it gives it a nice clean look. So that's kind of why I do, but you could certainly use fabric mesh. Deco mesh can be a little bit tricky, mainly because sometimes it can be a bit see-through, so you might need more layers of petals. Almost always you do, quite honestly. All right, so that is, I just added, this was our last one I just added in here. So as you can see with this inside layer, there isn't a whole lot of overlap between the petals. There's a little bit of there's a little bit more here than there is here in some other places. So I'm just gonna kind of position them the way that I want them, but they're kind of, the way that inside layer tends to lay is they kind of barely touch. So just kind of want to make sure I have like somewhat of an even distance between them here. That looks pretty good. Okay, so just a little bit of a repositioning. Okay, so that's what I have so far. Okay, so basically the bulk of my flower is done. And the last thing I need to do is add my centerpiece. Okay, so I chose yellow. It's a nice bright pop of color. I kind of had a hard time between all of my color choices in my kit of what, poly burlap combination I wanted to use, but I thought that offering yellow for a color option for the paint for the center would be nice because that way you don't necessarily have to use the yellow poly burlap to still get that pop of yellow color. I will tell you, and it'll be in the listing, so it's 100% clear, this yellow does not exactly match the poly burlap yellow. This is more of a bright sunshine yellow, and the poly burlap is more of a goldenrod sunflower type yellow. So they don't exactly match. So I don't want anyone to be disappointed by getting the yellow poly burlap and getting a yellow center and thinking it's all going to match exactly. It actually does not, which is why I'll be offering white, or definitely white, but probably some other color as well for the option for your center. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm just feeding the pipe cleaner through the plastic canvas. Doesn't really need to be any sort of exact way that you do that, just so it's in the center and you pull that tight. On the back here, give that a couple of twists. Okay, I usually don't snip these off until I'm sure that the center is exactly where I want it to be, but you could either cut those ends off, you can kind of tuck them. What I usually do is I end up tucking them sort of back in under the mesh, kind of around the bars. I don't like to leave anything that's going to be like a bulky thing on the back of my wreath, so I usually don't cut it, and I kind of just keep it flat and sort of do this and sort of wind it around somewhere. Okay, but I will do that part later. But to show you the finished product here, there we go. Okay, so that is our spring wreath kit. Okay, if you happen to see any gaps around your centerpiece, like you can see the plastic canvas anywhere, there's really only one spot I saw. Just sort of tuck your petal back underneath, underneath your centerpiece there, and you can easily hide that. You could also put a piece of felt on the back if you really wanted, and that way, if there was a possibility of any sort of light shining through or anything where there's these tiny little gaps, that would be covered. Okay, but there is your spring wreath kit. Again, thank you for watching me. Please check the description box below for things like links to my Etsy shop to purchase kits or to purchase completed wreaths. You'll also see links to my how to connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. But definitely please subscribe to my channel here. I do put content that doesn't go anywhere else, so it's exclusive to YouTube. But thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed the project. Take care. Bye.